huge day. But we're going to get into it. Welcome, folks, to another episode of the Sports PSP podcast. I'm your host, Sports PSP. And of course, I can't start the Sports PSP podcast without my number one man, my true guy, undisputed world champ. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good, man. Doing good, man. This weather is bipolar right about now. Yesterday was 77 degrees. Now it's 61 degrees. So we took the workouts back in the house today.
Oh hell, 61 degrees. You lucky as hell. It's 43 degrees out here in Jersey and
Wow.
rain. That's not.
Wow.
Hey man, I'm just keeping it a buck, man. It is what it is, but hey, at least I'm enjoying my nice little drink of Angry Orchard, so I can't really complain about that. Just finished getting off work. But champ, let's talk about the big news with the NFL. The Houston Texans, they traded a second round pick. Not this year's second round pick, next year's second round
Yeah.
pick to to the Buffalo Bills. And in exchange, the Houston Texans get a 2024 sixth round pick, a 2025 fifth round pick, and Stephon Diggs. The Houston Texans get one of the top 5, top 10 receivers in the game to pair him up with Nico Collins coming off his best year of his career, and Tank Dell coming back from an injury. Dalton Schultz ain't going anywhere. And if you look at the Houston Texans roster, look at what the moves they've made in the offseason. I'm just going by from Bleacher Reports right here. Look at some of the newest additions. Stephon Diggs, Daniel Hunter, Joe Mixon, who, by the way, they got in a trade because remember, before he decided to go to Philadelphia, Houston Texans were trying to target Saquon Barkley.
Mm-hmm.
So they get Jeff Okuda, CJ Henderson, Tim Settle, Foley Fatukase. I'm sorry if I mispronounced the name, and Tommy Townsend. Champ, Houston Texans are not the Houston Texans of old. They are a new organization. They have made huge progress in the offseason. They've clearly have won the Deshaun Watson trade. D'Amico Ryans has done a phenomenal job. Bobby Slowick, for those who may not know, he is the offensive coordinator for the Houston Texans, who comes from the Mike and Kyle Shanahan coaching tree. Did a hell of a job last year with this offense with CJ Stroud as the quarterback.
Yeah.
And they're coming off not only an impressive but dominant victory against the Cleveland Browns. I think with this move right here, the Houston Texans should at least, at the very least, make it to the AFC Championship, champ, because with some of the moves, the Houston Texans, they've won this one because they learned from the previous regime, champ, with DeAndre Hopkins. Dumbest trade ever, arguably, because you trade a top 3 receiver at that point and you don't even get a first round pick and you basically get a bag of Chips Ahoy and milk. That's what you get in return. I'm sorry, but hell, that's all you get in return for DeAndre Hopkins.
Oh man.
Then on top of that, you've got rid of Deshaun Watson, the trade, all the news he made for on and off the football field. You get your successor in CJ Stroud. This dude, and you saw him in the college football semi-playoffs against your Georgia Bulldogs, gave you 3 heart attacks, if I recall. 3.
3 heart attacks. 3 hard attacks too.
They drafted him with the number 2 overall pick. I went on Brandon from the Blocks podcast, the Throwdown podcast. And by the way, shout out to Brandon. Great job as always.
Yes.
I told him for my offensive rookie of the year, and that's CJ Stroud, man. The Houston Texans, they are loaded. They got their offense. They even got their defense. Will Anderson is the cornerstone. You also get Danielle Hunter to pair him up with Will Anderson and to help mentor him. I think this is going to be a team in the Houston Texans in the foreseeable future. And Kansas City, they traded L'Jarius Sneed to the Tennessee Titans. They got some issues right now with Rashee Rice. That's a story for another day. But I'm looking at this champ, the Houston Texans. They're the team in the rise. And you know what? The person that hurts the most, other than Josh Allen, because you lose Stephon Diggs. So your wide receivers are Khalil Shakir, Matt Collins, and Curtis Samuel. You know who gets hurt the most? Trevor Lawrence. And let me tell you why. Because not only does extra validates and what I've been saying all along, CJ Stroud, that truth, that dude, that dog, but the Indianapolis Colts. Watch what they can do once Anthony Richardson comes back. And you saw the job that they did last season when he was out. They had to go with Gardner Minshew at quarterback. So, and unfortunately for me, champ, it's looking like Trevor Lawrence at this point is an afterthought. As for the AFC, I still think Kansas City, as long as Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid is still there, they're still going to be fine. But competition, it's all good, champ. But when I look at the Houston Texans, they're a team to come in the foreseeable future. As for Buffalo, I think it's fair to say the Super Bowl window is closed. Because now losing Stephon Diggs, Miami, yeah, they still got Tua, but we all know Luis and Last Word, shout outs to both of them. They're not sold on Tua. They like Tua. They know Tua can play, but they have questions about Tua's durability. And Miami Dolphins last year, they only beat one playoff team last year, and that was the Dallas Cowboys. The Jets, assuming, and it all comes down to Aaron Rodgers' health, if he could stay healthy, and they made some moves. Hassan Reddick, they got the trade for Hassan Reddick. They also added in Ty Smith as well to protect Aaron Rodgers. Mike Williams there, I'm kind of iffy, but it could help a little bit off of Garrett Wilson. The New York Jets, assuming if Aaron Rodgers can stay healthy, they should win the division. For Buffalo, what are you going to do? And they're going to have to clean house. And Sean McDermott, I'm sorry. Time for you to go. And that's my take. Houston Texans, they by far won this trade because they didn't have to give up that much. You pair Stephon Diggs with Tank Dell, Nico Collins, Dalton Schultz, Joe Mixon. The Houston Texans, they should definitely be a contender for the Super Bowl. And CJ Stroud, MVP chances went up. Last year, we were having discussions about him with the MVP.
Yes.
And if this doesn't invalidate the MVP cases, I don't know what will. And I think the Houston Texans, their team in the foreseeable future, man, I just love what they've done. The only thing I don't love is the away uniforms, but that's a story for another day. I don't really like them. That's not my cup of tea. But I love the moves that they've made in the off season. They've saved up a ton of cap space. They've gotten all this draft compensation. They have handled it well. What's your thoughts, champ?
Number one, this is a huge hot take. Huge hot take. When I say huge, huge. Don't be surprised if a team come along, like let's say the 49ers, and start inquiring about Josh Allen. Because right now your team is gutted. And a lot of those pieces from the defensive side are not people are not taking this into consideration. People talk about the offensive side of the ball. That defensive side of the ball is not looking good as well. Especially with that bad contract with Von Miller. So don't be surprised if a team comes along, like let's say a Minnesota team that has 2 first-round picks and say, hey, we'll give you these 2 first-round picks and a pick next year so we can take Josh Allen off your hands to pair him up with Justin Jefferson. But that's, like I said, that's a hot take. You have 2 first-round picks though. I mean, give somebody 2 first-round picks and a first the next year. Hey, I'll take Josh Allen off your hands in order to get, and that way I don't have to draft anybody that's unproven. So if I was the Minnesota Vikings or the San Francisco 49ers, I would strongly look into that at this point. I would.
Yeah.
Secondly, I will get to the Texans momentarily, but secondly, Stephon Diggs. It's the third team you've been on. You got to think about that. First team you left, they upgraded. Yeah. The minute you left, they went and got Justin Jefferson and they upgraded. So what's going to happen if Buffalo ends up keeping Josh Allen and go gets Brandon Thomas and he comes out and starts having a dynamite season? Or they come out and they move up and draft a Maserati Marv and he goes out and have a dynamite season. What is that going to say about you? Because the thing is, although they haven't been deep into the playoffs, they were validated. The Minnesota Vikings have been validated in getting rid of you. Because, hey, Justin Jefferson not only had a 1,700-yard season last year, he also had a 1,000-yard season and didn't play but 7 games, all in all. So, for his sake, I hope that this works out. Because, you're not going to be, granted, you're not going to get double teamed and maybe triple teamed like you was in Buffalo. But granted, you're not going to be getting all the targets like you were in Buffalo as well. They got other guys they got to spread the ball out too, and other guys that can make plays. Thirdly, this is a huge step for Houston, man. Huge step. And you got to think about this. The draft is not even over yet. The draft is not even over. We're not even thinking about some of these sleeper picks that they can come out of the draft with. Remember, Tank Dell was a sleeper pick. Tank Dell wasn't a first rounder. Talent-wise, he was a first rounder, but in the draft, he wasn't a first rounder. So you got to think about some of these sleeper picks they can come out with. Secondly, when it comes to Houston, man, this can be one of the best receiving corps if they play it right and if everything works out right. This can be the best receiving corps we've ever seen in Houston since Warren Moon in the run and shoot offense. It can be that type of fireworks type of thing. And Houston, they have not had anything to rally around since Deshaun Watson, unfortunately. So for them to not only get a CJ Stroud, but for them to just say, you know what, we're just going to go for it all while CJ Stroud is on this rookie contract, while the getting is good at this point, before any more injuries take place. And you have to think about this, and I hate to say this, but you have to think about, Stephon Diggs, good receiver. But you got to think about, is Tank Dell going to come back at full strength? I'm pretty sure they thought about that when they made that trade as well. Because, that was a devastating type of injury. So you have to think about everything the above. But as far as the offseason is concerned, I really think that the Houston Texans, they went for it all. And not only that, they still have 9 draft picks. Granted, they don't have one in the first round, but like I said, there was a lot of sleeper picks that they took that transformed into great players. Tank Dell being one of them. So, number one
is one.
Yeah. So, you got to think about this. Stephon Diggs, this is your third team. One team made it to the NFC Championship. Second team made it to the NFC Championship. You wouldn't know further. If you ever had a chance to put a team over the top, this is it. And if you don't, you can't complain. Because if there was ever a time that you could put a team over the top, this is it. Minnesota, okay. Buffalo, all right. Now you have a young quarterback and you have a lot of young receivers that you can kind of mentor, take up under your wing. And not only that, you're going to be the main target, but they can't double team you anymore.
Right.
So you are in for not only a good season, if you play your cards right, you could potentially be going to at least a Super Bowl. I can see this team on paper doing that. And like I said, don't be surprised. And like you said, like you said, don't be surprised if we see some video game numbers this year because we were seeing it before he got hurt.
Yes.
CJ Stroud was in MVP conversations, just like you said, was in MVP conversations last year. So if he was in, and especially with penalties, the hip drop tackle, which we've already discussed that, with a lot of these rule changes coming into play, not to mention the kickoff rule coming into play, where you more than like where you can sometimes get the ball on the 30, which is incredible field position to start off a drive.
Right.
I mean, you could potentially have video game offense all year long, and it could be reminiscent to the run and shoot offense with Warren Moon. I can see that really happening. But Stephon Diggs, you're being put on notice at this point because this is your third team. Each time you've kind of failed to put them over the top. This is your last chance. Now, there's another guy on this team. There's two other guys on this team as well. That good route running, good yards after catch, good blocking. So here's your chance. And if you ever had a chance to get put over the top, this is it. But that's the thing. People want to talk, a lot of people talk about the trade itself, but they're not acknowledging that this is Stephon Diggs' third team. And I mean, if there was ever a chance that you have to win a Super Bowl, this is it. And if you're not getting the ball, and you got to ask yourself this, what is going to be most important for Stephon Diggs? Is it going to be more important for you to get targets and get receptions? Or is it going to be more important for you to win? Because if you get only 2 targets a game, because if you get only 5 targets a game and you only finish with 700 yards on the season, yet y'all win the Super Bowl, are you going to be content with that? Or would you rather be content with 1,400 yards and only making it back to the NFC Championship just to be standing into the confetti and looking into the shadow of another team again? Yeah. One must ask themselves that. So if you're not getting targets because of all of this high-powered offense, are you going to be content with that as long as you're winning? Or are you going to start complaining again about the touches that you're getting? Mm-hmm. That's a question that will have to be answered.
Oh, man, you brought up some great points. I think with Stephon Diggs, he's going to have to definitely be a mentor to the younger receivers, particularly with Collins, Dell. Not only that, John Mechie III. Mm-hmm. And there's going to be reports about you and CJ, because remember, I think his brother, Trayvon Diggs, spilled the beans between the issues with Diggs and Josh Allen. And when they hear that coming from Trayvon Diggs, mm-hmm. who can ball too, Pro Bowl, All-Pro cornerback of the Dallas Cowboys, if it's coming from your brother or a significant other, then people are going to assume it's coming from you.
Yeah. And I think Shannon Sharpe, the great Shannon Sharpe, said that one time. Hit on that one time. That.
He's my dude.
Yeah. I think he hit on that one time because the thing is, we got to be careful what your family members put out there, because when they put that out there, they're automatically assuming that's from you. Yeah. And that you've been pillow talking to your family about certain stuff, and now they putting out what you just said. So you got to be careful with that. And outside of that, I mean, good move by the Texans, saying go for it all while the getting is good. I mean, you just never know, especially with some of the injuries that especially last year. Some of these injuries to these quarterbacks last year was flat out atrocious, and that was arguably the most mid-year for a quarterback at this point. And I believe they're just trying to get it while they're getting this good and say, hey, let's make sure that we come out of this with a Super Bowl while we still can, And not to mention that franchise in Houston is still relatively young. And they have a chance to do something that not even the Houston Oilers could do. Earl Campbell couldn't do. Him and Dan Pastorini. Warren Moon couldn't do. Steve McNair couldn't do. They have a chance to do something that no other team has ever done in the city of Houston. And that's win the Super Bowl. We saw the World Series. We saw the NBA championship. But if you know Texas like I knew it, Texas is all about that pigskin.
Yes.
And if you can win a Super Bowl in a town like a Houston, hey, that will be an accomplishment for the ages for that team. Like I said, especially considering how young this franchise is. Not only the players right now, but some of the players on that team are older than the franchise. I mean, the Houston Texans franchise is only 20 years old.
Yeah, they came in 2002, and the number one overall pick that they had was David Carr, the brother of Derek Carr.
Yeah, David Carr.
And when you look at this Houston Texans, H-Town is a great city. Texas, we all know that is a football state, not just professional. College, high school, Pop Warner, Pee Wee, eat, breathe, and sleep football. That is like religion down there in the state of Texas and in the South. I think for me, champ, DeMeco Ryans, we're going to have conversations about him. Is he going to be the next best head coach in the NFL? He's one of the young ascending coaches in the game so far. It's great for the Texans because he played for that organization. He's familiar with the organization. He provides defense. Players love him. He's a player's guy. When you look at the Houston Texans, they had the number 2 pick. They didn't have to do too much to get C.J. Stroud. Was it Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud? They took C.J. Stroud.
Yeah.
And they traded up to get Will Anderson. I just love it for H-Town, man. And I think they're the team in the future. And when you look at it, KC, they're still going to be the team in the AFC. You got to ask yourselves with Baltimore. They're coming off a tough loss in the AFC Championship game. Lamar, okay, he's won 2 league MVPs. You can make an argument Lamar for Hall of Fame. But, the narrative with him is choking in the playoffs. You look at New York. Okay, Aaron Rodgers. Okay, look. Even though you mad with the Kirk Cousins deal, with paying him a ton of money, but I got more concerns with Aaron Rodgers coming off the Achilles than Kirk Cousins because unlike Kirk Cousins, Aaron Rodgers, even though he could throw within the pocket, what makes him so great is his ability to throw outside as well.
Yes.
And how is he going to be at age 40 coming off a ruptured Achilles? Now, they've done their part as far as getting him some O-line help. They definitely added some defense. When I look at Houston, champ, they're going to be the top. I think they're going to be a team for the Kansas City Chiefs because, as I mentioned, they lost L'Jarius Sneed. They traded him. They still have Trent McDuffie, but you're talking about 3 wide receivers in Collins, Dell, Diggs. So how's Kansas City secondary going to match up? They also added the running game with Joe Mixon. By the way, for those who may not know. OU dude. Had it not been for the situation that he was involved with, he could have easily been a first-round pick because he had that type of talent. And when I look at Dalton Schultz, a very underrated tight end, and he talked about the culture, the atmosphere at the Dallas Cowboys. It's obviously different in Houston because in Dallas, Texas, we all know who running the show in Dallas, and that's Jerry Jones.
Yeah.
I think for Houston, this is phenomenal. And you talk about Josh Allen with a trade, champ. Trevor Lawrence may ask for a trade. Now, the Jaguars, they're going to give him his money. He'd be foolish to turn down that deal. But
would he be? You have to ask yourself.
But how are you going to get that type of money, though?
But the thing is, you have to ask yourself this. The great Steve Bartkowski from my Atlanta Falcons said this. Do you want to win or spend most of your time on a hospital bed? Because the thing is this. You just lost Calvin Ridley within your division. Just lost Calvin Ridley. Christian Kirk has been lackluster at best. That offensive line not getting better. That defense not getting better. The jury's still out on Doug Peterson and whether he can lead you or was that just a fluke Super Bowl? Because remember how quickly that team went down after that Super Bowl year. It went down quick. So you have to ask yourself, they offered me a bunch of money. do I really want to stay at this team, or do I just want to say, you know what, I'm gonna play out this contract and I gamble and I see about testing myself for free agency? Because the thing is, I don't think a lot of these guys think about this. Do I want the money and get my head knocked off for the next 3 years, for the next 3 to 10 years while I'm on this contract? Or do I want to win? And I think that's what separates the great Tom Brady from a lot of these other guys. If you ever notice, the only guy that has won once he got his contract, only 2 guys just winning after they got their contract was 2 people. Patrick Mahomes, and although he choked in the playoffs, Lamar Jackson. Those are the only 2 quarterbacks that really got paid, that was out here just balling. So you have to think about this. And my thing is, they're within good organization. Do you really want to put your future in the hands of Mr. Khan?
No.
You really want to put your future in that hand? I mean, especially in that division, you're already outgunned. You're outgunned already.
Right. But here's why I say this, champ, because we've seen outliers. We saw Deshaun Watson when he got his money. And before all the other news that we heard about Deshaun Watson, 33 touchdown passes, 7 interceptions in 2020, the pandemic season, first year without DeAndre Hopkins, Pro Bowl. J.J. Watt approached him, I think it was at the season finale game against Tennessee. I'm sorry we wasted away your best year or one of your best seasons. So when you look at it, I mean, there has been outliers. Now, Trevor Lawrence, he could demand a trade. Justin Herbert, yes, they got Jim Harbaugh. It wouldn't surprise me if nothing works out. He would demand a trade. Now, other than Jim Harbaugh, the contract in Los Angeles, give me one reason why I would be there. Because I'm going to be in the division with Mahomes in Kansas City. So, I mean, as for Trevor Lawrence, I'm going to be, like, at best, the 3rd best quarterback. Because there's a possibility Anthony Richardson could come back from injury.
Maybe even the 4th.
Yeah, even the 4th.
Depending on how Will Levis does. Because he was balling at one point in the season last year.
Right.
And my thing is, they went out and they got, if you really look at each and every last one of these teams, they went out and they just paid their players. They kept guys under contract and they were able to retain a lot of guys. And guess what? At this point, the Jacksonville Jaguars, you're outgunned. You're outgunned. Anthony Richardson is coming back this year. Will Levis, he has Calvin Ridley and DeAndre Hopkins. And they shored up the offensive line. Not only that, they traded for L'Jarius Sneed. So in order to try to combat some of this receiving power that, the Houston Texans had, thank God they traded for him, because had they not, it was going to be some smoke in the city. They'd have been running past them like a track meet. Then add everything that the Houston Texans have done. Now, like I said, I don't think people are understanding how significant Stephon Diggs is significant, but understand how adding a defensive powerhouse like a Danielle Hunter is to go opposite of the defensive rookie of the year.
Mm-hmm.
You have 2 bookends. So the pass rush is there and the draft is not even over. You're outgunned. And my thing is, you're not going to outcoach the D'Amico Ryans. You're not outcoaching them. It's just that the jury is still out on what Brian Callahan is going to do. But at this point, not too many coaches can outcoach Shane Steichen.
Right.
You're outgunned. So do I really want to take this money when I know I'm outgunned already? Right. And I hate to say that word, but that's just how it is. I'm outgunned already. I have little to no weapons at this point. Coaching, iffy. Management, iffy. Ownership, iffy.
Iffy on ownership? They're atrocious.
I mean, I'm just being nice about it, but I'm just saying, iffy on all 4.
They brought in Urban Meyer, and you saw the mess down there.
Yeah, that was, and like I said, I gave him And you have to understand this. What have I been saying about Trevor Lawrence this whole time? People been falling in love with him for what he looks like rather than what he is. Trevor Lawrence is we want him to be great because of his stature, because of his size, because he's the prototypical quarterback. 6'6", 230 pounds, rocket arm, pretty accurate at times. But my thing is, you have to ask yourself, what did he tell you? What did he tell you? And what did you hear? And what did you see in that eye test this year? Especially with that huge collapse. We haven't seen a collapse like that since two people, Jay Cutler and Tony Romo. We haven't seen a collapse like that since then. You only had to win one game. You only had to win one game. CJ Stroud was injured for two of them.
Yep.
So you have to ask yourself, number one, is he going to command that money? Well, number one, is he going to command that type of money? Because you're seeing what paying on potential can get you at this point in this league. Paying on potential is not going to get it in this day and age. And number two, even if they offer you that money, you have lackluster ownership. You're outgunned by pretty much every team in that division, in your own division. You're pretty much the fourth best team in that division right now. The jury's out on Doug Peterson. The jury's out on the ownership. Do I really want to take this contract and end up in the hospital for the rest of my time there? Probably not.
When I want to talk more about the Houston Texans, particularly their offensive coordinator, Bobby Slowick.
Yes.
He's done a phenomenal. He comes from the Mike and Kyle Shanahan coaching tree. He was the defensive assistant for Washington, and then later on, he went to San Francisco. I think he has done a really good job, and he's a young guy. We've seen it before with young guys. Eventually, they end up becoming head coaches. Mike McDaniel, head coach. Kyle Shanahan, head coach. Sean McVay, head coach. You see what they've been doing with quarterbacks, and Bobby Slowick couldn't ask for a better quarterback to work with than C.J. Stroud in this offense, man. I think if he has another good season with C.J. and with this offense, it's going to definitely end up getting a head coaching job for him. All this talk about Ben Johnson, and yes, Ben Johnson, we can't ignore what Ben Johnson did, and he's still going to be a top head coaching candidate for 2025. But don't ignore Bobby Slowick now.
No. And you'd be fooled. And if you notice, that's why they put him under contract the minute the season was over. Mm-hmm. That's how come they extended him the minute the season was over. So we can make sure, you're not going to get out here as a free agency. If a team wants you, they got to talk to us first. So I don't blame them for doing that. So, I mean, this team, man, especially and the main thing they lacked last year, they got it. Joe Mixon. Because they wasn't short on receivers. Even without Stephon Diggs, I really think that team would have been great at the receiving corps because they had Mechie. He was coming back. Tank Dell was coming back. Nico Collins was coming back. Dalton Schultz was coming back. The main thing that they lack is additional offensive line help to help out Laremy Tunsil and that running game. And they addressed both of it. And not only that, that defense was 11th in the league. And then you go out and you add a pass rusher like a Danielle Hunter. Yeah. Like I said, this has the potential to be even than the Houston Oilers was when they were there. And like I said, I'm old enough to remember Houston Oilers. They were a huge team on offense and defense. Although they didn't win a lot, I think that was arguably the most popular team in Houston, even to this day. So, and like I said, Houston, they won the World Series. They've won back-to-back championships back in the 90s with Hakeem Olajuwon and Clutch City. You know, we saw that they could do it. Hey, they having a pretty decent year of basketball. We see them have good years in basketball with James Harden. Went to the Western Conference Finals. The only thing that city is missing is that Super Bowl championship. And if you can imagine, Houston is sort of like Atlanta, but in the Southwest. Yeah. Can you imagine Houston with a Super Bowl title? I would love to see it.
And with all the rappers down there, with Slim Thug, with Bun B, Mike Jones, Paul
Yep.
Wall, all of
Yeah.
H Town, Beyonce. Let's not
Yeah.
forget Beyonce. By the
Don't
way,
forget
shout out to
Beyonce.
her album though. I mean, they're gonna do stuff with Travis Scott too. H
Yeah.
Town. So I mean, that's the type of spot you want to go to, other than just Atlanta. H Town is gonna be
Yeah.
nice, and I think C.J. Stroud. I've said it before, man. All this talk about, all this talk about Trevor Lawrence, like he's gotten like so much of a pass for all the draft stuff. Remember C.J. Stroud? He had the worst Wonderlic score. But at the end of the day, man, I don't care. Can you process information? Can you read the defenses? Can you throw the ball on time and accurate? And he's checked all those boxes. Again, he gave you 3 heart attacks in that Georgia game, man. 3
3.
against that defense,
Yeah.
which is no joke.
Half those guys in the NFL right now. More than half of them in the NFL. So, I mean, for him to do that, that was enough for me to see it. I mean, and I was campaigning for him ever since during that time. I was hoping against hope that, but I knew they weren't going to do it. Atlanta was going to try to, ease up in there, but you know how Atlanta is. But but I digress. But
Yeah.
CJ Stroud, man, and I would say this, to be in a city like Houston, I'm trying to word this correctly, for you to be as humble as you are and as down to earth as you are, and a God-fearing young man like you are, and you don't get involved in all the trappings of that
In a city
environment.
like H Town,
Yeah,
that's
in a
very
city
inclusive.
like I said, that's Atlanta, but on steroids. For you to be, I'm gonna sneak one
I
in,
mean,
and I'm gonna sneak.
remember the lean. They
Yeah,
originated down there in H Town.
yeah. Hey man, don't forget about while we shouting out rappers, don't forget about Zero, man. Zero
Oh,
definitely
no,
deserves credit, man. But like I said, I'm gonna sneak a joke in there every time, every time. But for you to be as humble as you are in a city full of glamour, full of celebrity, full of a lot of trappings, a lot of trappings. If you think you could get lost in Atlanta, man, wait till you go to Houston. I mean, hey, man, they put certain things on the map. We'll leave it at that. But the thing is, for you to be that humble and a God-fearing man in the Bible Belt, no doubt, in the Southern city like that, you are a great example to what a lot of young men should be. I mean, you see all the flash, you see all the dancing and stuff like that. For you to be like that in a city like that is flat out amazing. And my thing is, hey, man, I hope that a lot of young men look at that and say, hey, man, this is what we need to look. Because everybody can do the flash stuff. But, not too many people can stay humble when you're in a position like that and you're winning like that. So big
absolutely,
shout out to C.J. Stroud for being one of the most humblest quarterback we arguably have ever seen.
absolutely. And I think Warren Moon is very happy as well. And shout out to Warren Moon as well, because he was a great not only football player but also a great leader and also a
Mm-hmm.
great role model as well. And with CJ, he has that dog in him. Like
Mm-hmm.
with the dances, the swag, he has charisma. And remember, he used to work. He used to play at Snoop's league.
Yes. He's from Rancho Cucamonga. He's
Yeah,
from,
let's
he's
not
from
forget
Rancho
that. Now,
Cucamonga. I didn't realize that was a real city at first, but
you thought it was because of next Friday?
yeah, I thought it was because of next Friday. That just goes to show you how uneducated I was about that city. I'm like, ain't no such thing as Rancho Cucamonga. But then you start looking it up. I was like, oh, okay, it really is a city.
Buffalo man, where do you go? Because with Josh Allen, the only good thing that you got is Kincaid, the other tight end, and James Cook. This may be a good thing to try to incorporate James Cook more, because if you're trying to throw the ball with those wide receivers and Samuel, Matt Collins, and Khalil Shakir, and what has been a knock with Josh Allen? Turnovers. Since he came into the NFL, he's led the league in turnovers. I think he was second in interceptions, only behind my man Sam Howell. who used to play for the Commanders, now is with the Seattle Seahawks. Is it over for Buffalo? Not just with the Super Bowl window. Is it time for them to clean house?
Blow it up. My thing is this: you've lost a lot, and with Josh Allen up under that massive contract, it's going to be hard to get players in free agency. You already was over the cap earlier this year, and like I said on the earlier podcast, I think it was yours. If you're already over the cap with the players that you have, imagine how bad it's going to be next year when you have to get rid of those players. Those were good players. You know, not only that, you already lost Leonard Floyd as well. You lost your cornerback. You lost Makai. I think his name is Hyde. You lost
Makai
Hyde as well. I can't pronounce his first name. I apologize. You lost Hyde. You lost your safety. You lost a lot of guys. So I mean, if a team like the Minnesota Vikings say, look, we got these 2 first-round picks, we'll give you that, and we'll give you a second-round pick. If you'll give us Josh Allen, I'm taking that. I'm taking it. Because the thing is, I have nothing left. I mean, the only thing I have is Josh Allen. And do I really want to put myself – and Josh Allen is a great quarterback. But I will say this. Do you really want to live and die by your quarterback like that for the rest of the time that he's there? Do you?
No, because if you're Buffalo right now, the farthest you're gonna get to is a conference championship game.
If you
And
get there.
On top of that, you still have struggled taking care of the football with Josh Allen. And I would like to see him in the NFC. If he were in the NFC, he'd be by far the best quarterback in that conference. Because you look at the quarterbacks there, there's Jalen Hurts. By the way, I have a sleeper for MVP, and that's Jordan Love, because I believe he's going to be really good. Dak is still there, and it seems like to me, Cowboys are probably going to move on from him. I think if you put him in a team, maybe Minnesota, or who knows. But Buffalo, I just don't see it. I think it's time for them to clean house once and for all. You saw the quarterbacks coach gone.
Yeah.
So it's time for somebody to go.
Hey, if I'm either the 49ers, I know they have Brock Purdy, but still, that's Josh Allen. I mean, put Josh Allen around some talent like that, it'll be amazing. Number 2, I don't think people are talking about this as much. We just saw one superstar receiver get traded. Don't be surprised if we see another one. Remember Brandon Ayuk? You know, he's having contract trouble. So, I mean, if the Buffalo Bills still want to keep that the way it is, hey, look at trying to trade a second-round pick or second and a third and getting Brandon Ayuk in order to get Stephon Diggs replacement and then draft Brandon Thomas or either Malik Neighbors. I don't think Malik Neighbors is going to fall to you. But
no, I don't think so. I do think with Ayuk, you got yourself a true route runner, somebody for Josh Allen to get the football to. And with Buffalo, what they got to do, they got to reduce Josh Allen's plate. They're asking an awful lot to throw the football and to run the football. I mean, he's not going to last that long in the NFL if he takes that amount of punishment. And if you're asking him to do entirely too much. You've been saying about James Cook, champ, and he's your dude from UGA. Run the ball, and you saw what happens when you run the football. A perfect example is the Dallas Cowboys game.
They ran down their throat all night long. They ran it down their throat all night long. And my thing is, I think it's a lot of prejudice towards the running back position because they don't want to play these guys. So they don't give them the carries that they need in order to carry them. You know, they don't give them the carries that they need. You know, because there's no reason why James Cook should only have 1,100 yards. There's no reason. So if you're going to keep taking that approach, you're going to live and die by Josh Allen, send him to another team, get you something substantial out of this while you still can before Josh Allen gets hurt. Because if you don't get a replacement receiver for Stephon Diggs in the draft, guess what? There's going to be Josh Allen right, Josh Allen left, Josh Allen passing. How long you think that's going to last in this in this stacked AFC conference. How long do you think that's going to last? We saw some of the best defenses in the AFC. We saw some of the best offenses in the AFC. So how long you think this is going to last? My thing is, don't be surprised. Hey, I will get on the phone with Minnesota. Hey, you come up off them 2 first-round picks and give me a pick the next year. 3 first-rounder, maybe throw in a third. I'll give you Josh Allen. You don't have to go looking in the draft for a quarterback. We'll give him to you. Because right now, you're in a situation where you can't go out and get anybody at this point. You're in cap hell.
Yeah.
And you just lost your best receiver. And you're not trying to run the ball with James Cook. What do? Blow it all the way up.
Couldn't agree more. But anyway, folks, that concludes the rest of the Sports PSP podcast. Appreciate my man, Undisputed World Champ. By the way, go check out his pod tomorrow night. Undisputed World Champ will be back on Thursday night. Tell him what time tomorrow.
9 o'clock on the dot. It is going to feel good to bring it all back, man. Was all over the place, man. Wasn't sure if I was going to bring back the show, but with a lot of encouragement from a lot of my people, to include you, PSP, I put you in there. I went on ahead and we brought the show back. It's going to be a phenomenal show tomorrow. WrestleMania week, man. Who won the all season, and what are we looking forward to? What are we looking forward to in WrestleMania, man? We got a lot of stuff, a lot of good things going on WrestleMania week, man. WrestleMania week, Comic-Con week, it's a flat-out blast. We're going to have a good time tomorrow, man.
I may be a little bit late to the pod, but I will definitely do my part to hop on. I may do a little spoiler. Stone Cold may show up in WrestleMania 40.
I hope so.
But as always, champ, it's a pleasure. And y'all know me, the Sports PSP podcast, Friday night, 9 p.m. We're going to have discussions about Caitlin Clark. Boy, she can ball, and she balled against LSU, got her rematch against Angel Reese. We're going to talk about Angel Reese going to the WNBA. And we're also going to talk about the big fella from NC State, DJ Burns, because he's been getting a lot of buzz. Could he play in the NFL? Or does he want to go play in the NBA? And of course, we're going to talk more about the Houston Texans, the trades, and also for which one you want. We're going to do a Cam Newton versus Andrew Luck. Which quarterback would you rather have? And we're also going to have more, the really good one. And we're also going to have more entertainment stuff. So fans and also the panel, if y'all have some ideas for some entertainment stuff, please feel free to inform me, and I will definitely take that into consideration. Y'all know where to follow me, folks. Sports PSP. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, as well as IG, as well as TikTok, Sports PSP3. Also, go follow my man Champ on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, so much more, man. And let's end this off on a Wednesday night. Y'all enjoy the rest of y'all evening, and peace.